where by missions, we mean high ambition, focused goals for change against which actors can align and convene. So can we take these missions and really make some positive change? The session has 4 segments. It will be first a keynote presentation from Dr. Jennifer Molwantois on innovation systems for water security. Second, a video showcasing the transformative futures for water security dialogue, which took place earlier this year in South Africa, which generated a set of stakeholder-driven missions for water security. Third, some brief testimonials or stories about using mission thinking in water security, and a discussion of lessons for collective action. And finally, a panel that will reflect on how to strengthen collective action on innovation for water security, including policy implications for innovation systems and for how we approach research to water security. So we're going to have a keynote speaker. We're going to go through the missions. We'll see how we came about with those missions through the video, and then we'll have some panels reflecting on that. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Dr. Jennifer Molwantois, Chief Executive of Water Research Council of South Africa.
Still in the who have not been served. Water scarcity and stress is placing another stress on water security, including water quality deterioration and health, as well as climate change. In South Africa, where you live determines the options that are provided or are available to you for water supply and sanitation. Now, when you can see on this picture, we have got what we call inequality, we've got equality, we've got equity, and we've got justice. So depending on where you sit and where you come from, this means different things to you. But in essence, we really have to ask the question, can innovation change this reality? And do we have the appropriate innovation systems to contribute to the transformational needs? I think the most critical point to ask is what policy positions and innovation policies do we have to implement? Historically in South Africa, we were and are still applying the research development and regulation, which is shown there in frame 1, where it has been what has been dominated between the 60s. The WRC, I mean, it's a 50-year-old organization. But what likely that means is that there will be incremental changes to protect the environment and to make sure that research and innovation results in changes. But in the last few years, in the last decade, there was the establishment of the Department of Science and Innovation in South Africa, which previously used to be called Department of Science and Technology. This is a good idea because then here we've got the national systems of innovation. However, we have realized that it could not be fully funded due to the myriad of challenges, and it could not also meet all of the demands. This innovation policy frame could not deliver what we call intensification of international competition, globalization, the prospects of being left behind, and the promise of catching up, as it could only deal with the fundamental challenge of inclusivity, equity, fairness, and social justice. So what innovation policies should be applied? If you're looking at this now, we're moving on to, we have historically done frame 1, and we have, with the establishment of the national systems of innovation, moved into frame 2, but we really have to be playing in this transformational change, which we say it is emerging. We really need to transition into the transformative challenge. And how to do that, we really have to adopt and use what we call the theory of change. We have to be more intentional on the outcomes of inclusive sustainability, inequality, and climate change. And that is where we're saying we have to bring everybody with us. So we have to have the clear discussions. Everybody has to understand this water security talk, not just as a buzzword, but what it really means for me as a rural woman from the village, for you as an economist, for a policymaker, as well as an innovator. Therefore, if we do not fully understand the end game and want to use innovation to lead the way to a new future, then we need to adopt the following: a mission-oriented approach. And I think this challenge that we're having in this discussion today has started 2-3 years back in South Africa, where you had different people from different walks of life, from different countries, participating and really unlocking and breaking it down to simpler, breaking down the complexity to simpler and understandable missions. We also have to have what we call a grand challenge approach. In that we had to really drive people out of the comfort zone of what we call historic and innovation and research and development, but make people understand that it's no longer about research products, but it's about innovation and how we implement this. And therefore we have to have a transformative outcomes approach. From the Water Research Commission, we have, in collaboration with partners, explored the innovation policy that we're speaking about. And for the requirements of that, we have had to have 3 specific key programs. The first one is a SASTEP, which is a mission-oriented, transformative outcomes, policy, social, and technological and economical approach. The second one is the WADA program, where we have looked at a developmental approach, where we have looked at small and medium enterprises and innovators and said, let's see what you bring into the table and how do we then take those technologies all the way through to being applicable. The last one is a local scale, it's the Guyana local scale climate change program, where we have actually taken a local community and businesses and decision makers and local government, and we have embarked on a mission-oriented terms of approach, as well as making sure that there are changes within the governance, social, and the technological approaches. In terms of the SASTEP program, the key success factors are that there has been significant funds and there has been flexibility and agility to move towards the right outcomes. So we have not only said we want new sanitation, we have said we are going to fund innovators for a certain period. We're going to have them compete against each other in order to be able to see the change that we are aspiring to. We had to work on a collaborative effort with other countries and other role players from across the globe. We also had to look at longer term funding. Historically, we would fund a project 2-3 years, but when we're looking at innovation, you have to be really focused on longer term funding. We looked at a multidisciplinary approach as well. Not only did we look at the technical and the scientific approach, but we also had to look at the social impact. We had to look at how people experience these technologies, what they think of them, and would they buy in and accept such technologies. And then we had to also create new benchmarks, practices, and standards, as well as to have segmented stakeholder engagements. In terms of the WADA approach and a WADA program, we have looked at this as what we call the Sector Technology Accelerator. We started up with a group of about 30 innovators where they were trained, where they were explained what are these big challenges. We showed them what are the new technologies that are available out there that they had to adopt, they had to localize, they had to make sure that they are able to be ready for the market. And in that, what was also key is that it was an inclusive approach. It wasn't your researchers in the true sense in the universities only. We also looked at small and medium enterprises. We focused on the inclusiveness of women as well as historically disadvantaged people. And that program was led by the Water Research Commission together with the UNDP and the Department of Science and Technology. And we did some test bed demonstration which are scattered throughout South Africa. In building the climate resilience and local government, we've looked at the local Guyana local scale climate resilience program, and that is funded by the government of Flanders. We worked with some of our stakeholders being award, the university, as well as a community stakeholder engagement. And there we were able to develop climate adaptation solutions at local community and catchment scale to benefit about 5,000 Guyana community members. But what was also important around this is that we looked at how they've always done things. So indigenous knowledge had to be brought through. How have they always survived without technology and innovation? And how do we then learn from them and enhance that to make sure that there's more focus around water utilization, which has to be sustainable. We had to also enhance what you call community resilience. Our communities have always been resilient, irrespective of where they're located and what they have been afforded or disadvantaged from getting. But lastly, we also had to look at local economic growth. And here we have to work with local government to say, not only are these technologies and innovations just for subsistence, but there can be businesses that are developed that, and you can therefore grow the local and rural economy in the places where it is. And through this program, the WRC was therefore enabling a community, business, and institutional stakeholders to engage and commit on water security and resilience issues. We are still a long way, I think, from achieving the high ambition in terms of water security. But I think what the case studies that we have shown at the Water Research Commission indicate is that you have to start somewhere. Firstly, you have to bring the people along. You have to be innovative and understand there are things we do not know and we need to learn from others. We have to collaborate with other people from elsewhere in the world. But most importantly, we have to put money in there, and you have to have a phased approach and multi-pronged approach. You can't have it one phase following the next one. It will take us decades. So in this regard, we are really striving towards this climate resilience, as well as using innovation to ensure that there is water security. Thank you very much. And I hope that this has really sparked some thinking around the speakers that are going to be here in order to showcase the different cases from different countries, but also what different entities are doing. It's not just government, it's not just communities, it's not just experts, it is all of us. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Moluwanta. We really appreciate your input. And as I was listening, kind of the main message was water security and innovation requires diversity and inclusion. Before I go to our next slide, which is going to be the video of the dialogues, I want to talk a little bit more about what these dialogues were, how they came to be, and who was really involved in them. Spoiler, it was everybody, a lot of stakeholders. So this was based on South-South dialogue across 8 regions from the global South, crossing from Southeast Asia all the way to Latin America. So this was really a global effort. It brought together, like I mentioned, all types of different stakeholders from policy, development, business, and science communities, with youth as co-guardians of those dialogues. It happened in December 2022, and in January 2023, over 400 organizations and 1,000 people contributed to these.
بالإضافة إلى تولي أمور قطاع المرأة بنشر الوعي من خلال عمل حلقات وجلسات توعية من خلال الواعظات اللي موجودين عنا تابعين لوزارة الأوقاف. جديد بلشنا معاهم، خلينا نحكي اللي هو دورات السباكة والصيانة المنزلية لحتى نساعدهم على ترشيد الاستهلاك وتقليل الفاقد المائي. في عنا حملة كل نقطة بتفرق، استهدفنا فيها جميع شرائح المجتمع المحلي، وهي كانت إعلاميا مغطية أكثر من خلال مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي ولوحات جدارية ويافطات علقت بجميع محافظات المملكة. في عنا حملة الاعتداءات على مصادر المياه، هي ممثلة ب إلقاء العقوبات اللازمة على المعتدين على جميع مصادر المياه اللي موجودين عنا بالتعاون مع الأجهزة الأمنية والأمن العام والمخابرات وتفاصيل أخرى. وتم نشرها وتغطيتها على جميع مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي وتغطيتها إعلاميا على التلفزيون والجرائد الرسمية. في عنا أيضا حملات من خلال اللي هو المؤسسات الحكومية والمؤسسات الخاصة مثل شركة هايجين وشركة زين، أيضا تم تغطيتها من خلال مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي. بالإضافة في عنا اللي تقريبا احنا من 2 لهلا حملة المؤسسات الحكومية اللي موجودة والجمعيات اللي موجودة عندنا بالمملكة من خلال مشروع ثواني اللي هو معالجة مياه الصرف الصحي وإعادة استخدامها بالتعاون مع الوكالة الألمانية للتعاون الدولي GIZ. بيتم تغطيتها بجميع محافظات المملكة ولحتى نعلمهم على موضوع ترشيد الاستهلاك واستخدام قطع ترشيد الاستهلاك والقيام بعمليات الاحتساب المائي لهاي المباني.
Thank you, Rawan. I think I had my fair share of campaigns done with you, but I really vividly remember don't underestimate the drop, because it was not only a traditional campaign, but it was also a social media campaign with a lot of tasers everywhere.
We will talk it
with Mr. Omar
Salame.
One point I would like to mention here, that you can reload the application for translation again, because now it's working. So if you just reload it, that would be great. We heard various ways and tools, and I am sure our audience in the room also have experiences with awareness raising. So we would like to hear from you. What do you think works best for awareness raising based on your experience? Take your time to put in your answers. More answers? I depend on your answers for my next session, so let's have some answers up. Okay. I'll wait just for a couple of seconds for some more answers. Okay, I'll just pick up one of the answers. We can see TV campaigns and targeted TV campaigns. And I have to say, being Jordanian, I think until the day my parents watch the national channel and they're really affected by anything comes on TV. So Teresa, I remember that we have implemented together with Dar al-Ifta. Dar al-Ifta is the General Fatwa Department in Jordan, just to explain to everyone. We have implemented the TV campaign with them. Can you please just take us over this briefly?
Yes, so basically the idea kind of came up because our project worked with religious actors in order to enhance awareness. And usually, I mean, the more traditional way how religious actors work is, you know, in the mosques, in the churches, like actually working with the congregations. But then, you all know, like 2020 hit, and there were no gatherings, there were no also religious services. And since the Jordanian population is actually very media savvy in a sense, so 69% of people surveyed in 2019 said that they always or often watch religious programs. We partnered up with the Fatwa Authority, the General Iftar Department, and so because they do like a regular weekly show, and then they did one show on the topic of water, sanitation, and hygiene from Islamic perspective. And that was like specifically, of course, in the context of COVID, and then also like prevention of, spread of disease. And that reached around 1 million people. So once again, it's a very effective way to quickly reach a large number of people.
Thank you, Teresa. Rawan, I would address my second question to you. You mentioned campaigns targeting youth, and I think targeting youth at a younger age for such critical issues is really important. Can you just briefly tell us a bit more about the schools campaign that the ministry have implemented?
Yeah. هلا احنا طبقنا تقريبا او مطبقين حملات التوعية لطلبة المدارس تقريبا من عام 99 وما زلنا مستمرين ان شاء الله. خلال العام الماضي تم تغطية ما يقارب 300 مدرسة خاصة وحكومية ممثلة اللي هي بإعطاء دروس الوعي من خلال الترفيه. تم تغطيتها من خلال عدد من الممولين ممثلة بالشركاء اللي تم ذكرهم سابقا. هاي الحملات بتعمل على زيادة الوعي ورفع الوعي لدى طلبة المدارس ولدى المعلمين. تم إنشاء ما يقال عنه الأندية المائية داخل كل المدارس، تقريبا ما يقارب تم تغطية لغاية الآن 3500 مدرسة تم تغطيتها من خلال الأندية المائية. هاي الأندية المائية مهمتها الإشراف على جميع الأنشطة اللي تابعة لمصادر المياه داخل هاي المدرسة. أعضائها هم طلاب هاي المدرسة بالإضافة إلى معلم التربية المهنية أو علوم الأرض بيكون مشرف على هاي الأندية. فيما يتعلق بموضوع اليوث، في عنا تعاوننا مع الجامعات الرسمية اللي موجودة عنا بالمملكة الأردنية الهاشمية. أنشأنا ما يقال عنه H2O Club معنى بقضايا المياه. أيضا تم تنفيذ ووضع إنشاء أونلاين كورس يدرس كمادة اختيارية في عدد من الكليات التابعة لهاي الجامعات الرسمية. أيضا الطلاب اللي موجودين بالH2O Club هم معنيين بقضايا المياه داخل هاي الجامعات ومعنيين بالأنشطة اللي تقام بالأيام المعنى بقضايا المياه عالميا وعربيا ومحليا. أيضا ركزنا على موضوع اللي هو الكشافي والمرشدات سواء كانت إناث وذكور. تم العمل معهم من خلال 2 ماضيات وما زلنا مستمرين من خلال اللي هو إعطائهم دورات تدريبية مخصصة بموضوع السباكة وترشيد استهلاك المياه من خلال تركيب قطع التوفير واستخدام التكنولوجيا الحديثة.
شكرا روان. Thank you روان. I would stay with Mr. Omar Salame to talk a bit more about Don't Underestimate the Drop campaign, because I vividly remember seeing it in every single street in Amman. So please, حملة USAID التاعت لا تستهين بالنقطة.
يعني الحقيقة احنا في شؤون الإعلام والاتصال بقطاع المياه عم نبذل جهود كبيرة لرفع الوعي المائي وترشيد الاستهلاك وتغيير السلوك والمحافظة على المياه والإبلاغ عن الاستخدامات غير المشروعة. وهذا الحكي كان من خلال مثل ما ذكرت زميلتي المهندسة روان أنه بهذا الموضوع هناك حملات أخرى مثل حملة لا تستهين بالنقطة اللي أطلقناها مع الوكالة الأمريكية للتنمية الدولية USAID. وهذه حملة حقيقة كانت نجحت نجاح كبير وحازت على جائزة عالمية على مستوى المنطقة ومستوى الشرق الأوسط. هي كانت على مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي واستخدمنا المؤثرين فيها للتواصل مع الناس بالمجتمعات المحلية، ونفذنا عديد من المبادرات في مؤسسات من القطاع الخاص، مؤسسات أهلية ومحلية، وأيضا مؤسسات حكومية. والحقيقة أنه كان في نجاح كبير لها وكان في استجابة وتفاعل معها، وشعرنا أنه هذه الحملة هي من أفضل الحملات اللي عملناها لأنه فعلا لامست هموم وقضايا الناس بشكل كبير.
I totally agree with you. I still remember it very vividly. Teresa, of course, in the modern days, social media cannot be neglected, and the importance of social media and the outreach that social media has is really of a high importance. Can you please tell us about social media campaignings?
Yes, sure. So I mean, as you said, it's just generally a very effective tool. But I mean, once again, similar to the thing with the TV show, we sort of rediscovered it with the COVID pandemic. So we did in total 3 campaigns. One was with the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, which was supporting a Facebook contest for World Water Day, where people had to send in pictures, like both something that represents the water situation in Jordan and then a effective method of water saving that they use. There was another one done with the water company Miahuna, since they wanted to basically during the month of Ramadan like prepare people for the very dry summer because there was not enough rainfalls in the previous winter, and so there was this awareness raising campaign. And the most like let's say the most widely viewed one, it reached around 1.5 million people, which with a country of 10 million is quite a lot. Is the one we did together with religious actors. So that was both with Islamic and Christian actors, and it both shared information on the water situation in Jordan and how to combat it, but also had religious messaging on the importance of stewarding the creation and taking responsibility for what we have.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I want to stay with you a bit. I want to go from super modern and untraditional to super traditional. I think in our line of work or the context of work, we produce a lot of guidelines, manuals, and booklets, and so on. I think it is still important. I think it has some certain, let's say, pros to it. So I'd like to hear from you. What do you think about manuals, traditional set printed media or publications?
I mean, the negative side a little bit with social media is, of course, that you look at it once. I mean, you open your Facebook feed and you see this video or infograph or whatnot. But then if you would like to go back to it later on, it's usually you won't find it. And that's the whole point of social media. It's very fast paced. And so especially when you want to do a little bit more, like not just quickly grab the attention of people, but go a little bit more in depth, like the more traditional types of awareness raising, the production of guidebooks, of manuals, of flyers, that can be good if you want to go back to it. So in our case, we produced 2 guidebooks. One was water from Islamic perspective and one was water from Christian perspective. And that was used to both train the religious actors and that they can then use that to raise awareness in their communities and to continuously go back to it. And also if you have changes in staff, that can then make sure that the messaging stays consistent.
Thank you, Teresa. I totally agree with you. Sometimes targeted booklets or manuals serves their purpose. Omar, I would like to address you again. And I know in the line of duty of the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, it's part of the job to distribute information, to regularly communicate with the audience, with the general public. And I know we had our fair share of published press releases. I know that the ministry also changed the way they tackle press releases. I'd like to hear from you, since you also worked for the longest period of time with the ministry as a spokesperson, your opinion about press releases and their importance.
بالتأكيد الوسائل الإعلام التقليدية لسه لها أهمية كبيرة يعني، وإحنا هذا الحكي إذا بنرجع لوسائل الإعلام سابقا لما طلع التلفزيون ما ألغى الراديو، رجع الراديو فيما بعد تطور وتحسن والآن صار له حضور أقوى. فوسائل التواصل الإعلامي التقليدية إحنا بنستفيد منها بشكل كبير، لأنه يعني هي صحافة مطبوعة بتأثر بشكل دائم. السوشيال ميديا نعم مهمة، بتوصل للناس في أوقات وطرق مختلفة وبسهولة، ولكن برضو حفظها مش زي الصحافة المطبوعة. فلحد الآن النمط يعني حتى بالدول الشرق الأوسط والدول الموجودة حوالينا لها تأثير كبير، وإحنا يعني كثير بنتواصل من خلال هذه الوسائل، والناس تلقى يعني قبول. يعني كثير من وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي برضو فيها إشاعات وفيها كذا، الناس برضو مش كثير بصدقوا هذه الوسائل بالشكل الكبير. إحنا ما زلنا نقول إنه هذه الرسائل اللي بتيجي عبر الصحافة المطبوعة ووسائل الإعلام التقليدية لها أهمية كبيرة.
I want just to highlight one point. Press releases before used to be published in the newspaper, like the printed newspapers. But also, I know that the ministry now started sending those through their social media platforms. So I think this was a great adaptation mechanism just to cope with the modern age. And I really liked it, that the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, the most official body in Jordan, adapted to the liking of the audience. We still publish press releases. We also at GIZ team up with our partners and publish press releases, but we changed the way we do it. It's nobody now goes to the newspaper stand and pick up a newspaper, rarely, maybe my grandfather, but not the youngsters and not the younger age. So I think that was a great adaptation to the modern days. Thank you. Teresa, I think at GIZ we handle press differently. We don't have press releases, we don't publish press releases, but we have press requests. And I think this is a very interesting concept that we need to explain to our audience.
Sure. So, I mean, that basically means that the press contacts us and they want to hear something. I think with our project, we had that a little bit more often than regular projects in a sense, because the approach was just a bit unorthodox, the whole working with religious actors part. But yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity if you just generally want to share information about, what the project is doing. Especially, we also have a little bit of a responsibility to do that, since all our projects are German taxpayer funded. So we have that responsibility also to inform the public what we are doing with that. But of course, you have to be a little bit aware of that the information is just being conveyed correctly and also culturally sensitive.
Thank you, Teresa. And last but not least, there is always the inclusion of the community. We cannot neglect this importance. You get more, let's say, customized services by directly talking to your audience and to your clients. So, Ali, I would like to ask you about your experience with stakeholder dialogue, الحوارات المتعددة الأطراف التشاركية، خبرتك فيها.
أول شيء عندما تم اختياري كشخص من ذوي الإعاقة لحضور الاجتماعات أو الورش العمل اللي راح تقام، كان دائما بصير عندي هكلان هم أو متخوف إنه ما تكون المكان مهيأ. فهاي كانت نقطة أساسية إنه بشكر عليها GIZ إنهم فصلوا رامب مخصص لمستخدمي الكرسي المتحرك للوصول بكل يسر وسهولة، وهذا ما يعزز دور الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في المجتمع. كذلك كسبت خبرات من خلال الحوارات، كانت هي تبادل الأحاديث، تعرف على الأشخاص المشاركين. هذا كان كله بصب في دوري كشخص من ذوي الإعاقة إني ممثل عن هذول الأشخاص وممكن أوصل رسائلهم. كذلك بحب أشكر أنا منظمة GIZ اللي قدموا خزانات احتياطية للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة وقيذارات كهرباء لتسخين المياه والأدوات الصحية اللي ممكن تفيدهم في توفير أكبر كم هائل من المياه.
علي، بدي أسألك سؤال. مع إشراك أطراف متعددة من المجتمع في حوار واحد، هل حسيت بأنه هذا الإشي أثر أكتر، طلع قرار مدروس أكتر؟ بس خليني أحكي السؤال بالإنجليزي. I'm asking Ali whether based on his experience, does he think that including multiple players into one dialogue, does it really affect the decision? How does it serve changing opinions? كيف بغير الرأي؟ كيف ساهم في حل المشكلة؟ How did it help tackle the water scarcity? I'd like to hear from you briefly.
طبعا نحن في أي اجتماعات لما نستمع لجميع الأطراف بنكتسب خبرات منها. كان يعني نحن استطعنا نعمل أكثر من رمب بالتعاون مع منظمتكم في للوصول لأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة للمساجد، للمدارس، لعدة الجهات. هذا كله ما أجى من فراغ، لأنه أنا حضرت وحكيت عن فئة الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة ودورهم في المجتمع.
ممتاز، شكرا علي. خلود, I would like to hear from you also your experience with multi-stakeholder dialogue with community engagement. تجربتك الشخصية مع إشراك الأطراف في الحوارات أو المجتمع المحلي في الحوارات واللجنات الحوارية. كيف أعطيني خبرتك من منظورك أنت الشخصي. Please give me your experience and your own personal interpretation of it.
كمجتمع محلي احنا طبعا مفروض انه في اي مجتمع بالعالم احنا ذكور واناث، رجال ونساء، طبعا بغض النظر مع مراعاة اي فئة موجودة. فالمفروض في لجان حوارية بده يكون موجود من كلا الطرفين موجودين. هلا تم اختياري موجودة كشخص موجود باللجان الحوارية. طبيعي انا كامرأة او كسيدة دوري الاكبر بيكون اثناء تواجدي في البيت. استعمالنا للمياه من بين تواجدنا في البيت كنساء بالعمل بالغسيل، بالطبيخ، خلينا نحكيها باللغة العامية، بشغل البيت بشكل عام. فإنه أكثر عرضة إحنا لهاي الأشياء بالبيت أو الاختلاط في موضوع المياه. إحنا أكثر عرضة ومعرفة وين المشكلة وكيف نعرف ندبرها. إحنا بنعرف إذا كانت المي خلصت أو ما خلصت، المي موجودة أو مش موجودة، كيف استعمالنا إحنا حتى لو واستهلاكنا وترشيدنا إحنا وترشيد تعليم أولادنا كيف يتم استهلاك أو ترشيد استهلاك المياه. فهنا كان دورنا ضروري نكون متواجدين لأنه إحنا الأكثر على اطلاع على موضوع المشكلة أساساً.
خلود، بس بدي أسألك سؤال. هل حسيتي إنه الأسلوب التشاركي أو أسلوب الحوار جاب نتيجة أفضل مع المجتمع من الأساليب العادية، especially إنه إحنا عم نحكي على المجتمعات اللي عايشة أو الفئة من المجتمع الأردني اللي عايشة مثلا في قرى شوية بعيدة، ما عندهم يمكن الناس الاطلاع على مصادر كتير. فهل حسيتي إنه الأسلوب التشاركي أثر بالناس وخصوصا إشراك النساء؟ Did you feel that the dialogue, the community engagement dialogues really served the purpose, especially that we are talking about villages remotely in Jordan? حسيتي بنتيجة ملموسة؟
هلا في اللجان الحوارية الموجودة لما بده يكون في عنا إحنا رجل من المجتمع المحلي، سيدة من المجتمع المحلي، شخص من الأوقاف، شخص من وزارة الصحة، شخص من البلدية. احنا هون اشركنا جميع المجتمع. فلو شخص واحد اجى حكى عن ترشيد الاستهلاك يمكن ما حدا يرد عليه، بس لما جميع الجهات تشترك في نقطة واحدة اذا في هم واحد لازم نعمل عليه. فاكيد كان في اشي مميز انه الكل يشترك في انه في مشكلة، اذا احنا نقوم على حل هاي المشكلة. فجميع الاطراف كانت تحكي بنفس الموضوع، جميع الاطراف كانت تسعى للسعي للافضل بموضوع بالذات المياه وتواجدها.
شكرا خلود. I will definitely come back to you in a bit to talk more about it. I think from what we all heard, there is multiple ways to do awareness raising. There is no one size fits all. There is multiple ways. So, and we also hear that including participatory approaches works even more and better for targeted messages. Ali, again, صيغة الحوار، صيغة المشاركة، ليش تشتغل بشكل أفضل؟ Why is the participatory approach and the dialogue formats, why does it work better؟ برأيك الإشراك ليش بيشتغل أحسن؟
الاشتراك دائما للأفضل، لأنه في مثلا أنا بسمع الرأي الآخر والآخر بسمع لرأيي، فدائما نصل لحل في ضمن تكتل، مثلا زي ما حكت الأخت خلود، السيدة، الرجل ذوي الإعاقة، الرجل الدين، المعلم، جميع الأطراف اللي تحضر هذا الاجتماع عم بيتحدثوا في صيغة معينة بيصلوا لهدف يسعوا له جميعا، وهو يعني ممكن زي ما حكينا إنه ترشيد استهلاك المياه في الأردن.
تمام، شكرا علي. خلود, you said that women inclusion is important. I know that this is specifically important because of the culture in Jordan. In your opinion, why is women inclusion so important? What does it serve? ليش إشراك النساء مهم جدا خصوصا بالمجتمع الأردني؟
هلا النساء عندنا بالأردن وبجوز بالعالم بشكل أكثر من ثلثين المجتمع، فهم الأكثر عرضة أو الأكثر كمان تأثير على الرجل أو على الطفل، هم أكثر اختلاط فيهم. بنفس الوقت إحنا عندنا النساء كمان برضو قويات، فإنه إذا نوع شغلة ترى بيعملوها فإذا كانت السيدة أو الأم كقدوة في البيت فأكيد رح يتبعها الطفل ومن ثم الزوج.
برأيك كيف ساهم إشراك النساء في اللجنات الحوارية بكسر الصورة النمطية عن المرأة وكمان محاربة التمييز ضد المرأة؟ How did women inclusion help break the stereotype about women, especially let's say in our context in the Middle East, in Jordan, not necessarily everywhere. وكيف how did it also help fight against discrimination?
خلينا نحكي عن تجربتي الشخصية. بصير هلا كخلود يعني كانت مجرد انه شخص عادي بيشتغل شغله وبيروح على بيته وما فيش مشكلة. هلا اثناء اختيارنا للجان الحوارية انعرفت خلود اكثر، فمش بس خلود واي سيدة في المنطقة كان لها تأثير داخل بيتها ثم في مجتمعها المحيط فيها. الآن بعد ما عرفنا وصار صرنا كقوة ضاغطة أصلا في المجتمع المحلي بتأثيرنا على أطفالنا، بتأثيرنا في بيوتنا عن طريق ترشيد استهلاك المياه. صرنا نروح ونيجي نحضر دورات، إحنا كمان نعطي دورات، إحنا نعلم الناس حتى الأطفال في المدارس إنه كيفية ترشيد استهلاك المياه. انعرفنا، نزلت على الانتخابات صرت مثلا واحدة معروفة، فإنه هذا كان له تأثير قوي كتجربة شخصية أنا بحكي.
Good to know. I think over the past 3 days, I get to know Khulud a bit more. And I think she also ran for the municipality elections and she won. So I think women inclusion is really important. We cannot neglect it. Especially, I would like to explain just briefly the context. In Jordan, if there is something to be fixed, let's say water related, if a tap is broken, a man cannot enter while women only are at home. So this is what we did. We really employed women toward, let's say, preaching, lecturing, going over the importance of water awareness and water raising. Like we should really be rational in our use. And I think women really served multiple projects of GIZ very well. We also have other examples where women were also plumbers, trained plumbers, and so on. So I think women inclusion is really important. I'm not a feminist, but I love women inclusion very much and I get super excited for it. Amr, I also heard from you several times that your campaigns were targeted especially to the audience and custom-made campaigns into the, let's say, governorates and so on. I would like to hear from you your input here about customization of the campaigns, يعني تخصيص الحملات خصوصي للتارجت audience.
يعني الحقيقة احنا مثل ما بتعرف في موضوع الحملات كنا سعينا دائما إلى أنه نزرع في كل مجتمع ممثل لقطاع المياه لنقل الصورة للواقع المائي، خصوصا أنه احنا بنعرف أنه الأردن المواطن بتزود مرة واحدة بالأسبوع بالمياه وبيخزن هذه المياه بالتنكات، وبالتالي أهمية المحافظة عليها وترشيدها كان مهم لنا. وعملنا عديد من استهداف جميع الفئات والشرائح والأعمار على مستويات مختلفة، وكان أبرزها أيضا اللي هي السباكات اللي ركزنا عليها مثل ما ذكرت الأخت خلود. السباكات اللي هي المرأة الأردنية الآن تستطيع التعامل مع واقع المياه وإصلاح الشبكات المياه داخل المنزل، لأنه وضع المياه إحنا مرة واحدة بالأسبوع، في بعض المناطق مرة كل أسبوعين، بيخلق مشكلات عديدة بحاجة إلى أنه المرأة تكون فاهمة لما بتقطع المي كيف تتعامل مع هذا الموضوع، لأنه إذا راح دور المي راح تتأخر كمان أسبوع أو أسبوعين، وبالتالي المحافظة عليها وسرعة الاستجابة. وحقيقة كان في انتشار واسع لهذا الموضوع، والآن في تفهم لواقع المياه بالرغم من الوضع المائي الحرج اللي ذكرناه في بداية الحديث. والمي بتوصل إلى أنه أيضا الوزارة وسلطة المياه القائمة على تزويد مياه الشرب بتوصل مياه ذات نوعية ممتازة، والناس صاروا يتعاملوا فيها وصار في ردود فعل وصار في بلاغات عن الاستخدامات غير المشروعة ومحاولات لتغيير السلوك وتبني لحملات من الجمهور أنفسهم لنشر الوعي المائي بهذه المجتمعات.
هل نفذتوا حملات خصوصي في مناطق معينة من الأردن وكانت المستهدف هو فعليا هاي المحافظة؟
ايش
المحافظات، هل عملتوا كامبينز أو حملات إعلانية توعوية خصوصي لكل محافظة لوحدها، يعني حتى خلينا نحكي نقارب وجهات النظر مع وجهة نظر الناس، مع طريقة حياتهم، مع
طبعاً.
أسلوبهم؟
بالتأكيد مع البي جي ار نفذنا حملات شملت مناطق كل مناطق المملكة على مستوى المناطق، وأشركنا فيها كافة الشرائح والمستويات من القادة وصناع القرار والمؤثرين والسيدات والأطفال وطلبة المدارس، وكان في تفاعل إيجابي كثير. حتى الفئات الأخرى مثل الأخ علي والشرائح الأخرى كان لهم دور بارز في إنجاح هذه الحملات على مستوى المحافظات وفي المناطق النائية، لأنه برضو يجوز تواجد وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي أو وسائل الإعلام مش بالصورة الموجودة في المراكز الرئيسية، ولكن كانت فعالة بشكل كبير.
Thank you, عمر. شكرا لك. I think we can easily say that communication is not only a top-down approach. It doesn't follow a certain pattern. You depend on multiple things together to do it. Teresa, I know that in one of our projects, we employed religious actors and various religious actors to work as water ambassadors and replicators of our messages. I think this is one of the, let's say, most unique examples or projects ever implemented, and I think our audience would like to hear more about it from you.
Sure. So I think we have a bit of a diverse audience here, so it might have a little bit different from country to country, but I think generally, like from a Western perspective, usually religion is considered a quite private matter that everybody decides for themselves. But that sort of ignores that over 80% of the world's population does adhere to a religion, and in tendencies, actually, it's going up. And in many countries, it does very heavily influence, like not only the personal beliefs and the way we behave and so on, but also from a like from society perspective, it just like very like has very strong influence on society and on communal behaviors. And so therefore, if we want to actually reach people and also like reach them through their own framework of thinking and of believing, and we want to have like a bit more of a credibility, it very often makes sense to try to align activities with religious actors. So in the sense of our project, we worked the main two religious communities in Jordan are Muslims and Christians. So we worked with imams and wa'idat, who are male and female Islamic preachers, and then with Christian priests and religious sisters. And yes, one part of awareness raising or more behavior change in that sense was after training the religious actors that 15 of them implemented behavior change initiatives in their communities. So they depending on their workplace, they either within the actual community, within actual houses, or people of their parish, or then at the workplace. So for example, at the school that they're working in, or the hospital, or the home for the elderly, they made water-wise homes. They installed water-saving devices. They raised awareness on specific behaviors. And then also, in order to actually see if that makes a difference, they monitored how was the water consumption before and how it was after the intervention. So that actually also empowers religious leaders to know their value as influencers for good in the society. And then specifically, since most religions do have that that part of stewarding the creation and being responsible with what we are given, and empathizing with the other, that is yeah, very positive.
I think I totally agree with you. Being Jordanian and living in Jordan, of course, you can easily touch it that people really have they follow in their daily life activity certain religious rules. They are really affected by religion, even if they are not religious, but then it is the culture, it's the tradition that people follow their religion. I would like to hear from our audience, because as Teresa mentioned, it's not necessarily the case everywhere. So I would like to see what our audience think here. Do you have trust? Is trust in religious actors or the other public personalities in your countries as important as it is in Jordan? Please type in your answers. Teresa, you would like to take a look at that. I think 58%, 50% of people said yes very much, 36% not really. And we have 7% no, not at all. I have to say there's like various answers, there's diversity. I would like to hear also your opinion about the results we are seeing.
That would be now interesting again to have that map at the beginning where people are from. Because so in the case of Jordan, actually, even once they did a survey in 2019 to see what is the most trusted governmental institution, and it was the fatwa authorities. Oh, okay, you're actually jumping back. It's once again, as I said, usually in the West, religion is considered a more private matter, but in most countries of the world, religious leaders are considered even more trustworthy than, for example, governmental institutions. So there's a statistic, I think, from Nigeria, where it was over 90% of people considered religious actors to be very trustworthy or trustworthy in general, while governmental institutions only around 40% were considered them trustworthy. So that's once again was something when we do awareness raising, when we do development cooperation, it's always really important to look at the country context to make it relevant to the specific country we are working with. And so it's not one size fits all solution for every single context, but in some it certainly is.
Teresa, I think we see this map. This is the variation that we have mentioned. I think because I also worked with the project for the entire period, I could tell how much influence did the religious actors have in replicating messages and having influence actually towards their communities. And it was remarkable how much change they also did or were enabled to do. And this is actually very eye-opening. Can you give us a story about a change in opinion throughout the period that you worked with the project, religious actors and other communities parts?
Yeah, not a specific story, but what we noticed quite a lot when we either did the pre and post assessments or like just listening to the conversations in the beginning and at the end was at the one hand, there was a lot of false information just going around. So many people had this idea, oh, Jordan has enough water and it's just somehow not accessible to us, or there were certain conspiracy theories. I think we're going to hear a bit more about that later, but that was one part. But from a religious standpoint, quite often people didn't like, what really made a change was that people often thought like they don't have to, like water is a public good, we don't have to pay for it. And so even if we're tampering with the meter or, you know, stealing water from someplace, that's fine. And I think there was a very strong stance that so especially like the Islamic religious leaders took, saying that no, that's actually stealing, and that you're not paying for the water itself, but you're paying for the service, for the electricity, the pumping, the bringing it to your home. And that was where we had, I think, the most changes in opinion.
Thank you, Teresa. Amr, I would like to ask you a question. You're probably very much confronted with some sort of information always. From your experience, have you ever were encountered with questions that really shocked you, like people have misbeliefs about the water situation in Jordan?
طبعا بالتأكيد، يعني كثير من الناس بيعتقدوا إنه في مشاكل المية اللي بنحكي عنها قد تكون غير واقعية، وإنه إحنا بنحاول إنه نفخم الأمور بطريقة صحيحة، ولكن برضو من خلال الحملات والجهود اللي عملناها استطعنا تغيير هذا النمط وهذه الصورة. وكثير بالناس بالمؤتمرات الصحفية دائما، يعني خصوصا على مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي السوشيال ميديا، بيحاولوا دائما يخترقوا قصص غير واقعية، أو حتى بتكون قصة لها طرف صحيح وبيبنوا عليها قصة خيالية أخرى. بنتصدى لها بشكل كبير من خلال دائما التركيز عليها بنشر المعلومة الصحيحة والواقعية وإثبات الحقيقة للناس بشكل مسؤول.
Misinformation is always there. False information, I have to say, spread faster and bigger than the truth. So you are continuously confronted with this if you work with awareness raising. There is misperception in the community and you cannot neglect that. I would like to address the next question to the audience. How would you confront misleading information and false information? We have a question. Please feel free to type in your answer. It's an essay answer, so take your time. I will discuss with Omar a bit more. عمر إيش كان أكتر إشي مثلا سمعته صادم؟ مثلا أنا سمعت إنه الناس تحكي تحت الأردن في بركة جوفية.
يعني كثير من المعلومات اللي بيحاولوا الناس يشككوا إنه إحنا الارتباطات سياسية بالمنطقة، إنه في ممنوع على الأردن مثلا يستخرج كميات المياه. هاي دائما عند الطبقات أو الفئات اللي ما بتكون مطلع على الواقع بشكل حقيقي، وهذا نتيجة غياب المعلومات الحقيقة بشكل دقيق وتأسيسها بشكل صحيح. ولكن التواجد الصحيح للمعلومات بينهي هذا الموضوع. وهي السوشيال ميديا بتعرف عملت ثورة خصوصا على منطقتنا، يعني كانت في كثير من الأوهام ونسج الخيال حواليها، وسرعة التواجد مثل ما أكدت، وأنه تقديم المعلومة الصحيحة والدقيقة بشكل صحيح بيخلي الناس تآمن فيها وتصير تدافع عن هذه الأفكار الصحيحة.
I think we can all see, or at least people in Jordan, people who work together with the ministry can see how much efforts is the ministry putting in front to really always be fast in delivering the needed information, in publishing the needed information to the public, to be in touch with the public and to respond to that. We have multiple answers. I think there is no right way here. تكثيف الحملات التوعوية، لقاء المجتمع المحلي, education, truth, build public trust, social media, educate, sharing facts, access to water information. يعني ما بعرف عمر بتحب تعلق على الأجوبة اللي عم تيجي؟
يعني الحقيقة كله يصب في خانة صحيحة إلى حد ما، يعني بس مثل ما قلنا دائما تقديم المعلومة الصحيحة وتكون موثقة بشكل صحيح هو اللي بيغير الناس وبيخليهم يتعاملوا مع هذا الموضوع. وإحنا عم بنجد إنه في زيادة بوعي الناس نتيجة التواصل المستمر، وإنه يكون في تواصل دائم وليس على فترات متقطعة حتى تبين هذه المعلومات الصحيحة وتقدم من خلال تبني شراكتك مع المجتمع على مستوى الشراكة، يعني بطريقة من طلبة المدارس، الأطفال، الجامعات، المراكز الدينية مثل ما حكت الست تيريزا. كافة هذه الفئات هي تستطيع تغيير الصورة النمطية الموجودة لدى الناس بشكل صحيح وبشكل مسؤول.
شكرا لك. Any of the panelists would like to add anything at the end of our session before we conclude? Now I would address the audience. Any questions from your side? Yeah, can we please mention your question? I'll help with the translation. And also if you have a specific panel member that you would like to answer, you can address, or all of them. Please go ahead. Lara, you would like to use one?
Hello. Hi, my name is Lara Nassar. I work with Siwi. I'm originally also Jordanian. I just have a quick question about the idea of how we can use religion to change behavior. I've worked in these projects in the past, but I've started to realize that they only target household, small community level behavior. No change, or I don't feel like there's any change when it comes to illegal pumping, illegal connections. And my question to you is, how can we magnify your experience on the household level through religion to do it on a bigger national level? Because you can still, people do this. There are a lot of illegal pumping, illegal connections. And when you speak to these people, they always tell you that they don't feel like they're doing something wrong. And or because the economic situation is very bad, they always have an excuse. Religion is not one of them. So my question is, how can we do better in making sure that that also magnifies to that scale? Thank you.
Yes, so I mean, there was certain activities that were done in that direction, which was mainly with Dar al-Ifta, so the general fatwa authorities. That as I said, there were certain like fatwas issued against that topic of you know, like that not illegally pumping water, not paying for bills, like this whole topic of non-revenue water. But you are right, it was still mainly concerned like a little bit the individual, the household. I'm not completely sure. I think here it would need a bit more partnering up between the religious institutions and also the governmental institutions, so because since in the end they are the ones who have to enforce it. It's always a question, what can change people's minds. I mean, hopefully that would be an aspect, but maybe as I said, more trying to do that messaging, not so much like for you as an individual, but that also the whole point of, as I said, like water is a public good, it's for the benefit of everybody, and if you're illegally pumping, you're stealing from others, you're taking away what's also the right of others.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
احنا عملنا اكثر من استبيانات او استطلاعات هنا بالاردن، بحكي عن موضوع بحكم عملي بالاعلام ومسؤول الاعلام بقطاع المياه. الحقيقه الدين له تاثير كبير لسه في بلاد، خصوصا بلاد الشرق الاوسط او بلاد العربيه خليني احكي، والناس بيستجيبوا لرجال الدين بشكل كبير وبغير هذا السلوك. قد يكون بعض الافراد اللي ممكن ما تقدرش تاثر عليهم بطريقه او باخرى. احنا صحيح في قوانين وفي تعليمات وفي اجراءات وفي حبس لكل اللي بيعتدي على المياه او بيهدر المي او بتعامل معها بطريقه غير قانونيه، ولكن ما زال موضوع الدين مؤثر بشكل كبير، وهو الاعلى من حيث ايمان الناس بهذا الموضوع. فعلا انه بحقق استجابه كبيره لدى الناس وقبول يعني بشكل اسلس واسهل من اي وسيله.
Thank you, Amr. We have a question. I will take the only question we have from the online, and then I'll come back to the audience. We have a question here. How do you measure the impact or success of the campaign with actors? Teresa, this also comes to you. How do you measure the success?
Yeah, I think that's I'm not quite sure which campaign is meant. Like, as I said, when it was more about these like actual behavior change campaigns, working with the communities, then you can really try to look at the difference. Like, as I said, in the water bills, for example, is there now less water being used than before that campaign happened? When it comes to social media, I think that's a point I forgot to mention. That's sometimes a little bit the tricky side of social media. You can very easily say we reached 1.5 million people, we reached 3 million people, whatever, but you cannot really see like how much did that actually affect people. So I think awareness is always a difficult thing to measure. It's mainly something we can do with surveys, with pre and post assessments, with general levels of awareness, but the only way we can really see the proper result is just really looking at water use, I think, what has changed.
Thank you. Who has a question?
Yes. Thank you very much. I wasn't able to follow most of the conversation, but I got the essence of what has been said. My question was actually similar to the one online, but what I would also be interested in finding out is what approaches or measures have you employed towards behavioral change at government level or decision makers? It's almost similar, I guess, to what my colleague down there was asking, because sometimes you find maybe in terms of the administration of the time in the country, they are set on their ways and you're really trying to shift or inform or influence policy. But unfortunately, the way they approach things is very, or how they see their vision at the time they are in office. So the question is, how do you, or what is it that you have employed as means of, ensuring that the bigger picture is achieved despite the government of the day? Thank you.
طبعا اكيد يعني اضافه للحملات والجهود الاعلاميه والتوعويه اللي بنقوم فيها، صار في تغيير بمجموعه من القوانين، صار في تغليظ للعقوبات على سبيل المثال. الموضوع الاعتداءات على مصادر المياه واستخدامها بطريقة غير مشروعة. صار في قوانين تلزم كل العقارات اللي هي إنه أي عقار جديد يبنى في المملكة إنه لازم يكون في عنده حصاد لمياه الأمطار لتعظيم الواقع المائي وحجز أكبر كمية مياه ممكن الاستفادة منها. صار في تنفيذ حملات كل مؤسسات بلاغات من رئاسة الحكومة لكل الوزارات إنه يكون في ضباط ارتباط لشرح الواقع المائي داخل هذه المؤسسات وتقديم رسائل قطاع المياه أولا بأول حتى نخفف العبء وما يكون في أول بأول رسائل مجرد ما طلعت من عندنا إحنا بننسق مع الوزارات المعنية وهي بتقوم بتوصيلها للموظفين، وبالتالي كل هذول ضباط الارتباط بالوزارات بيقوموا بنشرها بالمحافظات من خلال ممثليات هذه المؤسسات. فصار في جهود كبيرة، صار في تعاميم بوزارة التربية والتعليم وتغيير في مناهج اللي بتقدم للطلبة عن واقع المياه وإنه قديش أثروا على الأجيال القادمة، شو وضع المياه كيف بتراجع وكيف القوانين، وإنه إحنا إذا ما حافظنا على المياه بهذا المستويات. صارت من وزارات الأوقاف على سبيل المثال خطة بالجمعة اللي حكت عنه برضو رجالات الدين أيضا إنه تحكي عن هذا الموضوع. فعلى كافة المستويات وكافة الإجراءات، وزارة الشباب مثلا صار في أندية للشباب، أندية مائية بكل محافظة تنفذ حملات معينة وتستجيب للحملات اللي بتطلقها وزارة المياه والري وشؤون الإعلام والاتصال. وكان في استجابة عالية يعني بحقيقة ومبادرات من الناس. يعني في منطقة ما بتوصلهمش المي أو ما عندهمش مصادر مياه، هم عملوا مبادرة عندنا في أحد مناطق الجنوب المملكة، عملوا مبادرة لتأمين المياه من خلال مبادرة أهلية استجابت للحملات اللي كنا عم بننفذها، وكان يعني شيء من التجارب الرائدة أيضا. وطبعا في قصص أخرى كثيرة.
Thank you, Amr. Did you get the answer? You don't have translation on. I will summarize just a bit of what Omar has said. He mentioned that the approach is actually rather comprehensive. So they're not only implementing smaller campaigns or smaller activities, but what the government is following, or the ministry being a governmental body, what they're following is a more holistic approach. So they're trying to change education manuals that students have in schools. They are trying to team up with other ministries to tackle the same issue. So it's not the ministry in its narrow, like let's say, area of effectiveness. They are partnering up with multiple governmental bodies. They're following a comprehensive approach. That's what they are trying to do to have a greater effect and more sustainable results. I hope this answers your question. Yeah. English is fine.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Moez Alawi. I'm from Siwi, one office based in Jordan.
Yeah.
But I'm Tunisian. So my question is that usually this kind of campaigns in the region, in Jordan, in Tunisia, in everywhere, are targeting mainly domestic users. But we know that in our region, agriculture is consuming from 80 to 85% of water resources. So do you have in your plans or strategies anything that you could target these users, agriculture farmers, perhaps industrial users as well? I'm sure that these campaigns are useful anyway, targeting to domestic users, but perhaps we should target more the other users. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali.
شكرا. سؤال الحقيقة مهم. يعني احنا ما موضوع الزراعة، الأردن كانت الزراعة بتستهلك قبل 5 سنوات 70% من مصادر المياه الرئيسية المتاحة بالأردن. نتيجة الجهود اللي عملناها بهذا الموضوع، وعملنا شراكات مع المزارعين وفي عندنا جمعيات لمستخدمي مياه الري، إنه نظموا المزارعين أنفسهم بعملية الري واستخدام الوسائل التقنيات الحديثة في الري وزراعة محاصيل اقتصادية وموفرة للمياه. والتحول مثلا على سبيل المثال الأردن كان زراعة الموز بشكل كبير اللي بتستهلك كميات كبيرة. الآن صارت التوجه لمشاريع زراعية بتستهلك كميات كبيرة، والآن الزراعة تستهلك 50%. يعني خلال 5 سنوات وفرنا 20% من كمية المياه الزراعية، مياه الري اللي كانت بتستهلكها هذه الزراعة. نتيجة هذه عندنا جمعيات مستخدمي مياه الري، وعندنا أعضاء وبنفذوا برامج معينة وبنسق مع اتحاد المزارعين، ومن خلال وزارة المياه والري اللي عندنا سلطة وادي الأردن معنية بتقديم مياه الري بالتابعة لوزارة المياه. ففي شراكات مع المزارعين وتنسيق مع اتحاد المزارعين ومع وزارة الزراعة بهذا الموضوع. وعندنا أيضا كمان رفعنا طاقة الاستخدام المياه المعالجة الناتجة عن محطات الصرف الصحي، والمهندس وائل بجوز هو مساعد الأمين العام للصرف الصحي. يعني هذا الموضوع حقق نتائج إيجابية. احنا كنا بالأردن يعني مياه الري الآن تستعمد على المياه المعالجة المخلوطة مع المياه النظيفة، وبنوفر نفس الكميات لمياه الشرب، حوالي أكثر من 200 مليون متر مكعب سنويا من المياه المعالجة بنستخدمها من المحطات الناتجة معالجة بمحطات الصرف الصحي لمياه الري لزراعة محاصيل الأشجار واللي هي الأعلاف اللي كنا نستورد. الأردن بيستورد حوالي 400 مليون دينار كان سنويا من الأعلاف، الآن قلت إلى حوالي 170 130 مليون هذا الرقم.
Thank you. I think we had a question here first. I'm sorry, and then we'll come back to you. I'm trying to prioritize a little bit so we hear everyone.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Bugwa from Nairobi. Thank you for that presentation. My question is that in our country, the government has put water as a basic human right in our constitution. And therefore, the customers think it's a basic human right. And therefore, the government has the responsibility of providing them with water. So when it comes to matters of controlling illegal connections, is a big challenge for utilities. How is the general, are you from utilities or you're from the government? And what is the nexus between the policy of the national government and the utilities in addressing the issues of water use? I think that's my question.
بالتأكيد احنا يعني الأردن هي بتضمن حق كل مواطن بتأمين خدمات مياه الشرب، واحنا الأردن من أفضل الدول على مستوى منطقة الشرق الأوسط بخدمات المياه. 98% من المواطنين مخدومين بشبكات المياه، بالرغم مثل ما قلنا انه مرة دور المي مرة واحدة بالأسبوع بحطوها بتنكات، الا انه الكواليتي تبعت المي اللي بتوصل هي صالحة للشرب وصالحة للاستخدام وصالحة لكافة الاستخدام المنزلي بشكل دقيق وصحيح. والحمد لله نوعية المياه عندنا مواصفة عالية جدا، واحنا بنضمن هذا الحق للمواطن. ولكن مثل ما ذكروا برضو وموضوع الازمات اللي خلفتها، صار في ضغط على موارد المياه وعلى البنى التحتيه بشكل كبير. بتعرف 1,600,000 لما يجي مره واحده خلال وقت قصير، فاثر على ضغوطات المياه. والان صار في ضغط شديد على الحكومه بتوفير هذا الموضوع، واحنا بندعم المي بشكل كبير بالاردن لانه الظروف الاقتصاديه للمواطنين صعبه. يعني كلفه المتر المكعب عندنا حوالي $3. المواطن بدفع حوالي 50 سنت من كلفة المياه الحقيقية، وبالتالي تتحمل الدولة العبء الأكبر من هذا الموضوع لتأمين المواطنين بالمياه.
بس النص الثاني من السؤال عمر، كيف بتشوف التكامل بين شركات المياه أو مزودي الخدمة والوزارة؟
هي الشركات الموجودة عندنا، الشركات هي عندنا 3 شركات لإدارة المياه على طريقة القطاع الخاص. شركة بتدير إقليم الشمال والوسط شركة، وبالجنوب شركة. وهذه الشركات هي شركات حكومية مملوكة لدى الوزارة، وعندنا شراكات مع القطاع الخاص بتنفيذ المشاريع وإنجازها. والحقيقة الشراكات فاعلة، وأيضا نفذنا على نظام POT مشاريع استراتيجية لنقل المياه ومن مصادر بعيدة مثل مشروع جر مياه الديسي ومشروع وادي العرب. وهذه الشراكات كانت فاعلة لأنه ما بتقدر الحكومة تتحمل كلفتها بشكل أو بآخر. بتحكي عن مشروع مياه الديسي تنقل المي لمسافة 400 كيلومتر بالنسبة للأردن، يعني هذا من أقصى الجنوب لأقصى الشمال، وكلفة الضخ المتر المكعب بكلفنا $1 كهرباء بس إنك تضخه من الشمال من الجنوب للشمال حتى تأمنوا لمراكز التجمعات السكانية بالمدن الرئيسية. فهذا كل في بعض القطاع الخاص بالشراكة مع خلقنا هذه الشراكات الفاعلة والناجحة، والعم بحقق نجاحات كبيرة في هذا المجال، وحتى بموضوع حفر الآبار وتأمين مصادر مياه جديدة.
شكرا عمر. آخر سؤال من الجمهور.
أنا حسان آل سيف. شكرا مرة أخرى. عمر، Nice to see you here again. السؤال دائما بيطلع بالأخبار في فيك نيوز، أخبار مغلوطة وأخبار ضد القطاع، أو بصير في أشياء ممكن تكون تسريبات أو غير تسريبات. ففي كتير مرات to be honest and appreciated what you're doing إنه الرياكشن تبعكم within less than 24 hours to be honest، والcorrections دائما موجودة. بس how far and to which extent انتوا عندكم هاي الchallenge موجودة and how you really solve it and how you make sure you find the right information and how to deliver the right information to the audience.
Okay, Lara, تفضلي. Lara would like to add to the question, so we will take them together.
وكيف القانون جرائم الإلكترونية عم بيأثر أو لا، وإذا عم بيساعد؟ شكرا.
شكرا لك يعني على الإطراء، يعني شكرا. الحقيقة أنا خبرتي طويلة بقطاع، أنا أول شيء إعلامي، كنت بشتغل بوسائل إعلام مختلفة وعندي خبرة بموضوع التواصل. هلا شوف، أهم شيء تكون صادق مع الناس بموضوع تقديم المعلومة الصحيحة. واحنا اذا بتعرف بجوز يعني اذا بدنا نتوسع موضوع انه نوعيه المياه والشك اللي كان فيها حواليها سببه انه احد الوزراء السابقين ما كان صادق في موضوع تقديم رواية نوعية المياه للجمهور لما صارت مشكلة تلوث بمطلع القرن في عام 2000، لما صارت مشكلة المي محطة مياه زي بجوز الأخوان اللي بيعرفوا. هلا أنا دائما بنستخدم المعلومة الصحيحة، عندي فريق يعني من الزملاء والزميلات المهرة الحقيقة اللي بنتابع كافة وسائل الإعلام وبنتواصل مع الإعلاميين، وعندنا جروبات بنشترك فيها مع الإعلاميين، حتى أي فيدباك بيجينا مباشرة نقدر نتعامل معه. هلا بنقدرش نلحق على كل شيء حقيقة. يعني أنا بضرب لك مثل على سبيل المثال، لما صارت قصة سد الوالة، وإنه لا السد اللي قالوا إنه فتحناه ومات فيه 9 أشخاص، زرقاء معين. هذا السد لما صار فيه الوزير، انا لما فت عليه قال لي عمر بدك تحل المشكله، قلت له كيف بدي احل المشكله؟ قال اعمل اي شيء، المهم انك توصل رساله للناس انه هذا الحكي مش صحيح، لانه فعلا مش صحيح. فانا في ذاك الوقت قلت له بدي باصين، قال لي ليش بدك باصين؟ يعني المشكله قال، قلت له بدي احكي مع الاعلاميين كلهم ناخذهم على السد مباشره بنفس اللحظه، خليهم يشوفوا سينج از بليفنج مثل ما بيحكوا الامريكان. فيعني كانت بسرعه، قال لي والله برافو، فعلا اخذناهم ودنيا واستوعبنا الموضوع، واخذنا النواب واخذنا الناس مجتمعات. التواصل والسرعه بالاستجابه وعدم اهمال الناس حتى بموضوع الشكاوي. احنا عندنا مشكله الدور المي مره واحده بيخلق مشاكل، فهم بيتصلوا على اي شخص او اي مسؤول. وانا بيجيني باليوم هلا من هون بقول للشباب يعني كل ساعه مس كول. طبعا محول تليفوني على مكتبي بعمان حتى ما لانه بده واحد بقول لك انا ما وصلتنيش المي، اذا راح دور المي راح للاسبوع الجاي. هلا انا شو بسوي؟ بقول نقدم روايه، بقول له والله الاسبوع هذا ما راح توصل المي، خلص المواطن بيقتنع وبيقبل، ما وصلته مي، بس تعطيه جواب دقيق وصحيح. اما ما تصير تلف وتدور عليه والله احنا كذا وكذا. لما بتقدم المعلومه الصحيحه، هذا من حكم خبرتي، انك تواصلك بصير يحترموك الناس، بصير في قبول، الرسائل اللي بنقدمها بتلاقي قبول لدى الناس. يعني زملائي الناطقين الرسميين بالحكومه لما يجتمع مع رئيس الوزراء او مع وزير الاعلام بيظلوا يقولوا عمر يعني ما شاء الله انه مثلا له قبول. هلا انا قلت لهم دائما قدم معلومه صحيحه وما تخفي المعلومه عن الناس. يعني هاي مشكله الناس السياسيين، انه دائما بجوز بيحاولوا انه يخبوا اي شيء. والتواصل المباشر انا بعتقد انه هو مهم، ولازم يكون لك حضور وعندك برضه استعداد جيد وطريقه للتعامل وتحليل المعلومات وتقديم. احنا بنرصد الاذاعات صباح كل يوم، نقرا الجرائد مبكرا، بنعمل تقرير اخباري، نقرا الصحف العالميه والتقارير اللي بتطلع عن المنتديات المؤتمرات العالمية بنقدمها، بنعمل تقرير بقدم للوزير. وبظل عندنا رصد مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي، كل الشباب المواقع الإلكترونية الإخبارية حتى اللي داخل البلد، أول بأول أي تعليق بنحاول نتواصل مع المواطن، وبالتالي المواطن هو نفسه بيكون مثلا مؤثر بمجتمعه. أو هذا بصير يقول والله اتصلوا فيه ويخلف عليهم، حاولوا يحلوا المشكلة، حلوا المشكلة، فبصير في استجابة. أول تسمحي لي بس بالأخير بدي أشكر الست باربرا روز ميلر من الوكالة الأمريكية للتنمية الدولية. باربرا من الناس اللي دعمونا ببدايات شغلنا بالإعلام والسوشيال ميديا من خلال الوكالة. شكرا لها جزيلا لحضور وتشريفها. طبعا بشكر السيد تريفر وزملائه من الوكالة الألمانية.
Before we close, we are coming to our closing, but I would like to hear your answer to Lara's question. With the new social media posting law, do you think this is going to affect anything? يعني how the misinformation, how is this going to affect the spread of misinformation? We know that on WhatsApp, a lot of fake news spreads widely. Does the new social media posting law, criminal law, that just
موضوع القانون الجرائم الإلكترونية.
very briefly, because we have 5 questions online.
اوكي، الجرائم الإلكترونية لا شك انه هلا بالنسبة للناس بجوز شايفينه انه سلبي، ولكن يا اخوان موضوع انا وجهة نظر يعني صار في يعني كثير تطاول على حقوق الناس ومس بحرياتهم الشخصية يعني بهذا الموضوع. وجلالة الملك حكى قبل 2-3 انه احنا مش نهائي هذا الموضوع، ممكن نراجعه ولكن لابد انه يكون في حد. يعني إذا ما في حد أو ليميت معين للناس إنه تعرف إنه في شيء ضوابط معينة ممكن تضبطها، أنا بعتقد الفوضى الخلاقة اللي عملتها السوشيال ميديا هذا يعني مرعب على المدى البعيد. وإنه إذا بتضل الأمور هيك ما عاد في خصوصية، صار في انتهاك. يعني إحنا بنطلع بيان رسمي بنقول إنه إحنا عم نزود، بيطلع لك واحد على السوشيال ميديا كذابين لا ما فيش فهذا الحكي برضه ما بصير. أنت بدك تقدم معلومة، قدم معلومة لها أساس، حلل بطريقتك. فلازم يكون في موضوع انك انت حدود وضوابط لموضوع هذا. بعتقد انه راح يكون في تاثير مش على المدى القصير، لانه يعني راح يكون في مرونه بتطبيق هذا القانون، مش راح يكون بالصعوبه اللي بتوقعها الناس، ولكن لابد من ردع هذا الموضوع وحط ضوابط معينه لتنظيم عمل السوشيال ميديا والفوضى اللي عملتها بما يتعلق بهذا.
شكرا عمر. We would move to, we have 5 questions from the online audience. First question, looking ahead, what strategies do you envision for sustaining long-term engagement and motivation among Jordanians in their ongoing efforts towards water conservation? I think you partially mentioned the answer, that you have a comprehensive approach. Multiple, let's say, multiple parties are working together to sustain the results, but anyone would like to add anything? Teresa, would you like?
I think maybe one thing which is also important is really just to be comprehensive, like in how you tackle also the whole society. I mean, obviously, as you said, it's not just household users, it's also agriculture and so on. And I mean, we this afternoon I can pitch it. There's a wastewater reuse session about Jordan, so you can also come and join that. But I think like also when you're talking now about like the general population, what is really important is just to start young. And I mean, that's a little bit like what Rowan and Omar also talked about, is like with school children, with university students, you talk to people in like the cities and in the rural areas, through religious actors, through governmental actors, just like trying to reach everybody and like make sure that no one's left behind.
Thank you, Teresa. The second question. That's the first question. Second one. We have it. Just a small technicality.
Shift the question.
Thank you, Christina.
Maybe you should
answer.
No, I think you just have to click on the button down, right? On this.
السهم اللي تحت.
I cannot read it from the laptop.
ما هي مش نزل على السهم. كريستينا. Yeah.
Okay. A second question.
It's in Spanish. Maybe I can translate.
Please.
So I don't know if my question is out of context, but I would like to know if the new contract, not a contract, but the agreement that was reached with Israel to receive water.
Didn't understand the question.
The question stops, so it's not completely spelled out. So it's like just like basically if it's being kept, and if this has strengthened the Jordanian water saving packed, but as I said, the question stops in the middle, so I.
So basically, it's safe to say it's about the new agreement or the agreement with Israel, Palestine, Israel, occupied territories, whatever. What would you like to comment on that, or you would like to leave
يعني
politics aside of this?
أي حل بأمن مصادر مياه للأردنيين إحنا نسعى وراءه بشكل دائم بغض النظر عن أي شيء. المهم إنه نأمن مصادر مياه تضمن حقوق الناس وإنهم يحصلوا على مياه كافة الاستخدام.
Thank you. And of course, we have to have a diplomatic answer. All of these campaigns and PR
My work.
of course. Third question. Rawan. اوكي، هل تعتقد ان التشريعات ما زالت غير قادرة على معالجة خلل الاعتداءات وهل هي بحاجة لتعديل او تغليظ؟ It's again about water thefts and water assaults. I think Lara also addressed similar question to عمر. هل تعتقد انه التشريعات ما زالت غير قادرة؟
احنا عملنا تعديل على التشريعات ب 2013 على اساس كانت العقوبات بسيطة جدا لانه كانت ما في موضوع العقوبات، ولكن الربيع العربي اللي ما يسمى بالربيع العربي او اللي هو ليس بالربيع عمل في تطاول على القانون وصار في مزيد من الاعتداءات ومن خصوصا لقطاع المياه. يعني احنا بنحكي عن حجم الاعتداءات على مصادر المياه خلال ال5 سنوات الماضية أكثر من 70,000 اعتداء على خطوط المياه الرئيسية. هذا كان بحاجة، فعملنا يعني فوكس أو تركيز على بعض هذه القوانين وتغليظها، وعملنا شراكات الآن في حمل بناء على توجيهات من جلالة الملك مع وزارات مثل الداخلية ووزارة ومديرية الأمن العام الشرطة وكذلك المجلس القضائي اللي هو مسؤول عن المحاكم. تنسقنا كافة الجهود وفهمناهم، لأنه ما كان برضو مفهوم. يعني القاضي لما بيجي بيحكم على سبيل المثال مش مدرك قديش حجم الموضوع المي، بفكر انه اعتداء على خط زي اعتداء على واحد بيلعب بخط مي عادي. فبرزت المشكلة انه هذا بكلف الدولة مئات الآلاف من الدنانير وكلفة المي مش بس الكلفة المالية. فصار في تغليظ بالعقوبات والأخذ بالعقوبات الشديدة والحد الأقصى، والعقوبات الموجودة هي إذا ما طبقت كافية. ولكن برضو إحنا بتعرفوا الدولة الأردنية دولة متسامحة وبتمشي بالأمور بشكل ديمقراطي، في عنا مجلس نواب فعال وفي عنا يعني، فبالتالي بنمشي فيها بالتدرج وعم بنحقق نجاحات إيجابية.
شكرا عمر. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. We have 2 more questions. This year's theme is innovation. What is the most innovative action that you have taken? What have been the challenges for that action? Who would like to answer?
Well, you're looking at me.
The most innovative action. I wouldn't say the most innovative, but I think what we really did here is follow really a comprehensive approach. Whatever the category was, we really found a way to reach and outreach to those peoples. We employed multiple tools. And as you heard from the experience of the colleagues here, it wasn't only one tool and then one size fits all, but it was rather like a custom service delivered to those people. So I think I wouldn't say innovation here, but I would say that we really followed a comprehensive approach. We tried our best to customize a tool for each target group. I don't know if Teresa and Omar agrees or they would like to add more.
No, I mean, I as I said, I just like generally think the whole approach of working with religious actors was a little bit of a unicorn. So that was a little bit different than from what is usually done. It's difficult to say if that's the most innovative, but I think it just uses different methods. So when you have things like the sermons, the fatwas, like actually working with like women groups through the female preachers and so on, you just reach a target group that you usually don't. So I think that's quite new.
Thank you, Teresa. The last question. I don't know if
That's
my
the
question
translation of
that's
the Spanish question.
Okay. So I think we tackled that.
Yeah.
We have a 6th question now. Looking ahead, what strategies do you, this also we had first time. So with this, I think I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank our panelists today. I would like to thank my co-moderator, Christina, managing the online meeting. And also I'd like to thank Lena for co-hosting this session together with Christina. Thanks to all of you for engaging, for being here, for showing up. If you still have any questions, a huge group of us from Jordan is still here. I also would like to mention that we have the 40 years of German cooperation publication there available on USB sticks and also as a printed book. So feel free to grab a copy. And if you have any further questions, you can address me and our panel members outside of this meeting for the rest of the World Water Week. Thank you again. Thank you to my panelists.